1987, the Māori Language Act declared Te Reo Māori an official language of Aotearoa New Zealand. The Act, alongside other initiatives, laid the foundation of what we've achieved in the past 31 years, restoring what was once labelled to be, in an official report, an ancient relic of Māori life to its original state as a living language of our country. I was born in '88, 1 year after the Act, and have benefited from the efforts and struggles of those who advocated for Te Reo to be given the same rights and recognition as English. I wonder now if those people who faced racism and adversity in the streets, collecting signatures for the Māori language petition of 1972, and those who continued to lobby for change in the '80s could have imagined the fruition of their fight that we're witnessing today. It's mind-blowing to think that in 1984, Dame Nada Glavish battled to keep her job for saying kia ora on a work call. Today, it's encouragingly normal to hear Te Reo being used by people from all walks of life. I'm confident you can all acknowledge this social shift that our country is experiencing towards Te Reo Māori. It's increasingly evident in my own work, and the growing number of people enrolling to learn the language every year. And my experience at AUT is not an isolated one. This is happening across the board. This new generation of students come from diverse ethnic and professional backgrounds and range in age and understanding. But what we all share is a desire to deepen our connection with our language. If you haven't done so already, please turn to the person next to you and say kia ora. What we can all do, starting right now, here today, is just as we've shown we can do. Embrace Māori words and phrases in our everyday interactions with others, in the street, in the store, in the workplace, and in our homes. And in doing this, we start to socialize Te Reo and continue to normalize the language in our society. Now, the idea of socializing the language by using a word or phrase where you can isn't complex, but it's worth acknowledging that for some, this is easier said than done. So, I'm going to tackle a few existing issues that perhaps inhibit you or others you know from using Te Reo in this very achievable way in these spaces. When learning a language, pronunciation is fundamental, and it's almost always the first thing we're taught. Fortunately, Māori isn't dissimilar from a number of large languages that some of us may be familiar with on some level. With that said, when compared with English, there are a couple of differences to note, specifically when it comes to the pronunciation of the vowel sounds. Let's give it a go. A, e, I, o, U. Perfect, ka pai. I surveyed a group of first-year students and found that lacking confidence in the pronunciation is one of the greatest barriers that stop people from practicing Te Reo outside of the classroom for a very real fear of getting it wrong, of being corrected, or concerns about how one may be received by another. The truth is that all of us here today, use Te Reo Māori far more often than we perhaps consciously realize. And a great example of this is our shared extensive knowledge of New Zealand place names, flora and fauna, and personal names. It's not just about sounding sweet or sounding right. There's meaning in the correct articulation of a name, Hēmi, or Paraparaumu, for example, that's completely lost when mispronounced Paraparam. However, generations of bad habit and misunderstandings have made it somewhat normal to get it wrong. As with the vowel sounds you just nailed, we've got the opportunity to get it right for once and for all. It's likely that most of us are aware of a certain hesitancy by some who doubt the value in correctly pronouncing Māori. One author, for example, notes the evolution of pronunciation in the English language due to the disperse of speakers across the globe, and asks the question, is there any one way to correctly pronounce Te Reo Māori, or any other living language for that fact? This example may be true for English, but it doesn't hold for Māori. For one thing, the size of the area where Te Reo is spoken hasn't led to significant pronunciation variance. For now, there is one correct way to pronounce this living language, and to do so is not as hard as some have made out. It's also been suggested that the obsession with correct pronunciation only discourages people from trying. As a teacher, I understand that the safe learning environment I aim to foster in my classroom, where practice is encouraged, doesn't always transfer into the public domain, and others don't always use supportive methods of correcting. I can only urge my fellow speakers to be mindful of anyone trying, and perhaps correct by demonstrating accurate pronunciation in their presence in a non-confrontational way. And to those of you trying to speak, to kōrero, and to teach, whatever your level, it is noticed. I'm not obsessed as such with incorrect or correct pronunciation. A little effort goes a long way. And with the right steps, before we know it, pronunciation could be a non-issue. We can continue to be a part of this change. I've personally encountered students at first skeptical of their ability to pronounce, and seen each and every one, with a little effort and a lot of practice, overcome that reluctance and become empowered through Te Reo. Whenever Te Reo Māori makes the headlines, sometimes a kind of pessimism is voiced as to the realistic value it holds for everyday New Zealanders. One argument that's heard in opposition to learning the language is its lack of economic value. Sometimes it's put forward that New Zealand's economic future lies in its international relations, therefore, other languages should take educational precedence. I think this completely overlooks the fact that a great deal of New Zealand's international appeal lies in our Indigenous language and culture. It's this mindset around lack of economic value that essentially led to the demise of Te Reo in my own whānau and many others across the country. My native-speaking grandmother, like many of her generation, bringing children up in the 50s and 60s, refused to speak Māori to them, lest it encumbered their success in an English-speaking economy. It's unfortunate that these backward-looking beliefs still exist today. It may be surprising to those who hold such beliefs that Māori businesses have an economic asset base of close to $50 billion, and research shows that one valued key competency in that area is knowledge of Te Reo Māori. This value is upheld across diverse sectors. Today it's understood that having knowledge of Te Reo is not only a very real cultural accomplishment, but an asset in a number of different career pathways. In this sense, Te Reo Māori holds a very real value in the intersection between economy and culture. One question that I've been asked on more than one occasion is if Pākehā or non-Māori are welcome in this space and free to learn Te Reo. I never did consider asking a native Spanish speaker if it was okay for me to learn their language before starting my slow but sure journey towards fluency. However, in being fair, I'm aware that these sensitivities that we hold, that some hold, around non-Māori speaking Māori, are a product of our history. My response to this question is that Te Reo belongs to this land, and as something living in this land, we have a shared responsibility to ensure it continues to live for future generations. It is the Māori language and culture that makes us unique in the world. It's an intrinsic part of our identity that's seen and felt, both here and abroad, every time we as a nation sing the national anthem or chant the words of the haka. There's a saying, Ko te reo te tatau ki te ao Māori. The language is the doorway into the Māori world, and the door is always open. This is an exciting time for te reo, as it is for Aotearoa. For myself, as for others, my journey with the language has essentially enriched my New Zealand and my international experience. Here in Aotearoa, we understand that a gifted pounamu taonga, or greenstone treasure, takes on a personal value to the individual who possesses it that is priceless. A value that's not completely appreciated until that taonga is held in one's hand or worn around the neck. Despite its uniqueness and its beauty, it's not something we obsess over or reserve for a select few. Instead, we share it. We gift it with whānau and friends and visitors. Te reo Māori is our taonga. Let us proudly claim this gift and come to fully understand the value it can offer in each of our lives, starting with a greeting, with a farewell, or even just a word like kia ora. It's been 31 years since te reo Māori was made an official language of our country. Let's not only imagine, but be a part of where we could be in the next 31 years. Kia ora.